Two recently, but I was
Yeah.
trying to think. There was one before I did. I was trying to think what it was.
Yeah, think about it. Hey, if you got this part of the video, you've got the live unedited edition. Home Gadget Geeks. It's April 18th. A happy post-tax day to you. I hope you all, at least if you're here in the United States, you've got your taxes in. I barely got mine Sunday. I was submitting my tax forms. Don't ask me why. Usually I have those done early, but I for some reason I put that off till the very last day. Even though I was getting a return, that was stupid. We're in the pre-show, which means this part gets cut out before we go. But we've got a big live audience tonight, so thank you for everyone. Ken and Mark, Gavin for coming out. Don, good to see you out there. Thanks for jumping in. We will be getting live here in just a few minutes, so hang tight, and we'll get started here shortly. Just time to check in the chat room if you are out there. We can't see everybody, so check in. Let us know you're out there, and we'll get started here in just a second. Mike
and Tony, I know you're along with me a Unify fan, so this is a testament to in my house I run one Unify ACAP Pro. And it's in my living room, and I'm out on my patio. And I mean, I don't know. You guys will be the judge of the reception and the quality of it. But man, I am just crazy impressed with the range, the speed on those access points. They are absolutely insane.
Yeah, that's one of the things I'll bring up about my experience so far as my network needs an upgrade.
Okay.
And if you've ever heard the story about the snake, have you ever heard that where the snake fell on me?
No.
No, it's in this neighborhood. We were looking at a house and it had a very tall crawl space. And I was literally walking underneath it. And I had my arm out and I felt something brush my arm. And it was a snake that fell on my shoulder to my feet. And I looked down and there's a snake. And so I need to run some cable, but I've got to go under the house. Where
I'm not a snake guy. I feel you. I spiders, whatever, give it to me. Snakes, not my thing. That is Hannah's thing. Like my wife handles the snakes. I handle critters, spiders, whatever. Like snakes is the one thing I do not do. So much so we have a little shed over here where we keep our firewood. And I'm like, Hannah, can you go? When it gets down to the last few pieces, she grabs it because I'm like, I know there are snakes in there just under that wood. We have an agreement, and that's what it is.
I'm all about the equality.
Yeah, there we go. Right, there's the equality for you.
Hey Tony, that mute on that mic is pretty loud. If you can use the software mute on the Hangout, if you're going to do that, that's at least that's what I was hearing. Were you shutting it on and off? Yeah, just use the software one. That's a little bit better if you could for me. So cool. All right, let me kick this thing off. We're right at the top of the hour, literally, and we are 398. Today's the 18th. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on, and we will blaze through this podcast. Hold on real quick. Sound check out there. Everything. We'll make sure these guys are hearing us okay.
And to all the people in the chat, I won't be chatting because it's really far away tonight. Sorry, guys. Yeah. I can't. And if I start playing with that, it's resting perfectly on a chair.
What did you bring? What did you bring out to do this?
It's my MacBook.
Okay.
So it's my MacBook, but it's resting like very delicately on a chair. And if I try to type, it's going to just flip over on me and crack the screen. So
Gavin said, Mike, really from outside?
That's what I saw. Like, I can't respond to you via text. So yes, outside, it's glorious. I might do this every week, Jim. This has been great. I'm really comfy. I'm really warm. I might start a fire.
Maybe we should do a live one from your patio.
I think that you should just come over and we should do a live one out here.
It'd be pretty great. All right, let me kick this thing off, and here we go. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 398, recorded on April 18th, 2018. It's not 2018, it's 2019. Jeez Louise. Hold on. Let me try that again. Too many beers today. Here we go. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 398, recorded on April 18th, 2019. Here at Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the Average Guy.TV studios here in a beautiful Bellevue, Nebraska. Mike is sitting outside. Uyghur, why are you outside? What's the deal?
You know, I've got a lot of in-laws staying with me. You guys know that I podcast from my man cave in the basement, but in that basement, we actually convert that over to a guest whole area. We've got twin 1-year-olds staying with us. We've got in-laws staying with us. We got the whole crew in the house. So I said, you know what? Maybe I'll just take over the back patio, and that'll be my space. So coming to you live from outside my house is me.
Makes me jealous. Made me want to go out on the deck tonight. I didn't know you were coming in until late. I would.
I know. It was a late call. Actually, I was
All
like, shoot, I'm not gonna be able to do it from anywhere else. So this will have to work.
Well, it's like when we had Edward on, and he was smoking the cigar outside on his deck, and it just kept getting darker on him. So
yeah, I did turn the lights on in advance, so the lights are on. So as it gets darker, the lights should fill in. Hopefully, we'll see.
Well, don't forget we post the show with world-class show notes out at theaverageguy.tv. Don't forget you can join us live on our mobile app. Really, the best way to get that, just download it. HomeGadgetGeeks.com, Android, iPhone. Download it. It's streaming only, but if you're on the road, in a train, in a plane, in a car, those kinds of things, really the best way to stream the show and get it. You can get it for free. We thank our Patreon subscribers for helping us pay for that as well. HomeGadgetGeeks.com. It gets it done. I think we added another 15 or 20 more to the Discord group this week. And so if you want to join us, many of you said you hated Facebook. And so here's the alternative, theaverageguy.tv/Discord. You can join us out there as well. All the way to the left, although, yeah, he's all the way to the left as well. Tony Rayner is joining us. Tony is a longtime listener. Tony, we've had you on before, right? You're this isn't the first time you're on, right? And don't forget to unmute your mic. Now that I made you software mute it.
I think it was a home server show a couple of times, but I don't think on your show yet.
Okay, wow. So first time I owe you a t-shirt apparently to get that done, but thanks for joining us. And really, Tony, thanks for the last 2 interviews. You've really kind of helped us set up. We have Patrick Stewart with us tonight. Habitat is coming in here. And Patrick, welcome to Home Gadget Geeks. Great to have you on.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for being on the air and having me join you tonight. This will be fun.
Yeah. It's always awesome when our listeners reach out and say, hey, we'd really like to hear from, and fill in the blank. And oftentimes, like in this case, Tony helped me kind of broker this. He was like, oh, I'll reach out and then we'll make this happen. And so, Patrick, let's get to know you a little bit. Give us a little bit about who you are, what you do for the company, and then maybe a little bit about Habitat.
Sure. Well, like you said, my name is Patrick Stewart. It's spelled Stuart. Let's get that out of the way. Love to hear the best jokes.
You got to get that a million times, right? That's like the Michael Bolton joke on Office Space.
It's great. Yeah. But I will tell you just briefly, I worked in the printing industry for almost 15 years. And there's a gentleman who has it far worse than I. And I'm not kidding you. His name is Charlie Manson. So every time
it couldn't be worse
about my name, I'm like, hey, I got Professor X or I got Captain Picard. At the end of the day, those are the 2 things that we can get. Now, there's a 12th century conqueror of Europe, but that rarely comes up. But Charlie Manson, I'm telling you, change your name.
I know. And he goes by Charlie, right? It's not Charles.
Not Chuck. Not Charles. No, Charlie. And he loves it. So if you're listening to all those Charlie Mansons, Patrick Stewart is available. You can change your name to Patrick Stewart. It's much better. But
super.
Yeah. So besides having to deal with that virtually all my life, I did spend a long time in the printing industry. I started in home automation in the late 80s when I got my first job at Radio Shack. Bought an X10 kit way back then on my employee discount, and decided that I didn't like waking up to the annoying sounds of an alarm. So I wanted a nice sunrise. I'm from the great northern plains of Minnesota, so in the doldrums of winter, we get about 5 hours of snow. 5 hours of snow. No, that's 500 days of snow a year, but no, 5 hours of sun. So I wanted to wake up to the sun, and so I automated a light bulb to fade up and down. So yeah, that was my first foray into it, and then it just grew into an addiction that never quit. And built a house a while back, fully automated it to the hilt, and did a whole bunch of consulting work for a whole bunch of clients, writing drivers and a whole bunch of different integrations for a whole bunch of different systems. And then found this little startup called Habitat that a couple of our founders tried to put together. And we all kind of had connections back to another product called Smart Things. And we all just kind of fell into this and said, there's got to be a better way. And so we built Habitat around the code we had already written, and mainly around 2 major integrations. One was our Lutron integration, and the second one was a product that one of our founders wrote called Rule Machine, which is kind of the Swiss Army knife, minus trademarks and all that fun stuff, of rules-based automation. So it gives us the ability to really do everything local and reliably and also private. So, those are our three basic principles when it comes to automation.
Hubitat, HUBITAT.com, if you want to check it out. That will be the one link we have in the show notes this week. There'll be a lot of things going on, but check that out. Tell us a little bit about how long has Hubitat been around?
Officially, we just celebrated our third year from founding. A year ago, end of January, we launched our first product, and that was a hub and a USB stick that you could buy. And just about a little over a month ago, we launched our Model C5. We kind of didn't show that at CES. That's a fun story. I may or may not get into. We'll see how it goes. But we were all prepared for the pre-CES PopCom show, and it was one of those things where inventories were getting delayed. This thing at the last minute, I've got my don't talk about the new hub. It's like, okay.
Hey, Patrick, you guys don't have anything running that would affect your bandwidth at this point, do you? We lost a little bit of it. What it sounds like is you had an inventory problem you were going to show it off at CES, and and we lost a little bit of that. You just want to make sure we're not.
Yeah, I've got the best internet connection in the world. Gigabit internet. So
awesome.
but it's horrible. So I joke.
I thought it was just my Wi-Fi to the patio, because I was like, I lost him too. Maybe that was just me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure it's all the kids getting home from school and playing video games. So hopefully it'll stabilize.
No worries. So from being a new company, right? And you guys are constantly, you got to figure out, this is the really, you're in the difficult phase. You've got the idea going, you're trying to get things off the ground. You go to CES, maybe it doesn't turn out like you wanted it to. But from a traction standpoint, how are you feeling right now about where you are in the market? You're competing. It seems like everybody is in this space at the moment. How are you guys feeling at this point?
Well, we think we're doing something right, and I think that resonates with a lot of people. Today was a busy day. There was another competitor that had some significant outage due to their cloud dependency, and just like my wonderful internet connection, these things affect your automations if they're cloud-based. Yeah. And so, that's the thing that we see as people evolve through what I'll call remote control, and then what they call smart home, and then eventually automation. We decided to focus on that last part of it, which is where I think everybody wants to get. But most people today in the industry are really excited about the fact that they can tell a voice assistant to turn off their lights. For me, it was all about making sure those lights are on when I want them on and off when I don't want them on. And so, to me, reaching for my phone or reaching for a voice assistant, that's just remote control. That's just moving the light switch to a much more convenient way, but it's not automation. It may be smart. And so when we look at the evolution of this, like I said, I went back to my X10 days, and I was like, well, that was before the internet was available, so we could do it back then. And then you fast forward to maybe 5-6 years ago, when everybody kind of got into the space, and everybody did it because they thought the cloud was a necessity, that you had to connect everything to the cloud. And I fell into that trap too. And I was like, this is cool, but then when it doesn't work, right? It may be only failing 1 out of 100 times or 1 out of 1,000 times, but that's not really the key issue there. It's the fact that, Thomas Edison would be pretty upset at the fact that it might take up to 2 seconds from pushing a button to a light bulb going on. How far have we come in this world where, we could apply electricity, a new concept that was magic back then, to a filament and have it glow instantly. And now here we are round tripping like a Rube Goldberg machine up and down through the cloud, back and forth. And then, because it does fail every once in a while, like my internet connection, it was, I'm going to keep calling back.
Actually, you're better now. So it's good. It's good. Yeah.
And honestly, I didn't time that or anything.
No, you're fine. It was a nice segue. Let's run with it.
Yeah. But so that was the thing that drove me nuts, was you'd get this either half a second to 2 second delay when you walk in front of a motion sensor and you're like, is it going to turn on? Is it going to turn on? Ah, yes, it turned on. And that's something we really wanted to tackle, was how could we be real time and I'm sure there's people that argue the definition of real time, but less than a second, real time processing. We had a fun little internal discussion a couple days ago about the definition of real time, near real time, and then logging. And I disagree. I think real time is measured in microseconds. But in this day and age, when you have two concerns, one is how slow it is to respond, and then the second part of it is, will it work? Because you get into this idea that it failed. It failed once. And, there's a joke in the industry. We talk about, I'll use the politically correct term, spousal acceptance factor.
And use the same term.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, my wife, we had a very expensive home automation system. And then I started adding some stuff through a cloud-based system. And my wife was like, the door locks didn't lock again. And it's like, what do you mean? At 10 o'clock every night, the locks were supposed to lock, and they didn't. And, you start getting a little nervous. It's like it happened once, and then she kept calling it out. And so, we wanted to make sure that, a very simple principle in computing called edge computing, we took that same concept and we said, all automation is local. It should be done in the house. There's no reason for your device data to go out to the cloud. Period. End of story. There's only one reason why those manufacturers want that data.
So
simple,
they can sell you things. Yeah.
Exactly. They can use it, right? They want to use the data. And so we said, we don't need that data. We don't want that data. And heck, I don't want to pay the cost to store that data. So we set out to create something that ironically turned out to be pretty difficult, which is if you want to just build an offline hub, you can do it. It's not hard. If you want to build a cloud connected hub that doesn't require internet, but can take advantage of the cloud, it takes a little bit of work. And that's the tough part of this. And so that's been a lot of our ongoing development. We are what I'll call an evergreen home automation platform. Unlike some other platforms that put out an update every couple months or maybe once or twice a year, we push out updates almost every 2 weeks. But unlike cloud home automation systems, we don't require you to upgrade. So you can decide when you want to upgrade or if you want to update. And that's an important part for us. And, so that's one of the design considerations. Another design consideration we took on was we think that a lot of our customers and like to tinker. And so, I'll do the shameless plug. We are running a sale right now for Easter for $10 off. But the reality is a lot of people buy a second hub so they can mess around and keep that spousal acceptance factor high. So if you get a new device, you hook it up, you play around with it, and you're like, okay, now how do I put that into my house? I was guilty of that too, because I would write code and mess around with stuff, and then I would break stuff. So that was another thing that we wanted to make sure that you could separate them, but connect them. And so if you want to, you can actually mirror all of your devices into that second hub through our Hub Connect software, and bring them in there and work with them as a virtual aspect of it too. So
Patrick, before we get too far, and for the newbie, when we talk about your equipment, and you have separate equipment for both the US, Canada, and the UK, but a chunk of our audience here is in the US, and maybe there's not that much difference, but talk a little bit about the hub itself. How you guys built it, what it looks like, some of those kinds of things.
And that's what I was going to say, because you have me intrigued. You have me so intrigued, because I have the problems you're talking about. I have the delays. I have the spouse acceptance factor. She's totally on board, and we have a lot of this automation through a lot of things, but it's a lot of cloud-based systems. So what I want to know, and I think what Jim, is also leading into, is how do I get integrated into your system? How do I start out? What do I need? What do I get? What do I set up?
Well, the shameless plug. You visit Habitat.com, you purchase.
And what's
it's not shameless. That's why we had you on.
That's right. That's right. We'll do the shameless plug, right? And then
I want the code. So whatever code is that gets me that discount off, just let me know.
You don't even need a code. You just get it. You
All
get
right,
$89.95 on Habitat.com only. If you go to Amazon or any other place, it's not on sale there. It's only on Habitat.com, and that's only good through this weekend, Easter weekend. And so. Yeah. And man, I'll tell you what, that sale's been a hit. So, if you already do have one, buy a second one, play around with it. This is our hub. This is connected. This is live. This is actually running right now, but I'm going to put my hand in front of it so you can see how small it is. It's a pretty small, tiny little hub, just a USB port, to provide power and an Ethernet port on the side. That's it, a little green light. So it's pretty tiny, smaller than an Amazon Fire TV box if you use it for reference. A little bit smaller than an Apple TV, a lot thinner too. So you plug this in, you plug it into your your Ethernet port that you might have on your router or network switch or what have you. And then you sign up, you go to portal.hubitat.com. It should discover it, and it'll download its software, do its own thing. And within a few minutes, you're going through our brief tutorial. And then it's really just a matter of picking out the Zigbee and Z-Wave devices or Lutron integrations, Ecobee, Sonos, all kinds of fun stuff. We do all the voice assistants. So Amazon Echoes, Google Voice, not Google Voice. That's a phone system. That'd be weird. But Google Assistant, Google Home. Yeah. And so that's the process. We pretty much give you a blank slate, and then that's just because that's where we started, and we could improve a lot on that. And I'll tell you, my role in the company, I'm the head of business and product development. So I kind of try to lay out a roadmap for our product and try to create the structure around it. We have a very great engineering team that builds it. We're all enthusiasts when it comes to home automation, so we all use this stuff, and that's an important part of it. We all have a passion, and we've got this wonderful community that just loves home automation as well. And so we built it around automation first, and I'll tell you just a little bit of the roadmap. We originally built it without any way to actually access your devices, because we kind of said home automation is something that if you have to go in and turn on a device, you're not doing it right. We quickly realized that we would need an interface, but we made a decision early on. We were going to launch without a mobile app, and just to prove the point that you didn't need a mobile app to interface with home automation. Again, probably should have had a mobile app, but at the end of the day, we're working on, actually, I'll announce it officially here. We're going to be going into beta very shortly with our Android and iOS apps. But they're really just meant to access your what we call dashboards, which is a 100% customizable grid that you can set up to control your devices, and it'll do presence, so you can and I believe this, and I talked about device data. We will be one of the first, if not the only, geofencing solution out there that does not track your phone location. It seems obvious to me. After we spent, a year in development trying to do this, is we don't need to send your GPS data to the cloud. In fact, we don't even have any storage for that. All we need to know is whether or not a circle on a screen, whether or not you're in or out of that circle.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all we need to know. And so that's all that our geofencing will do. The app stays private. So your
stays local and private, right?
Yeah. Yeah, your coordinates stay local on your phone, but you can access it, sends through our cloud relay back down to your hub,
right?
And securely and as best we can. But if anybody ever intercept that traffic and decrypted it, all they're going to see is the word enter or exit. That's it. They don't know where.
Yeah.
And so that's important.
No, that's nice, because I think a lot of my listeners here, a lot of our listeners are concerned about that in a lot of ways. Tony, I want to bring in here in just a second, but I want to ask this question of you, Patrick. So I have a whole bunch of different home automation in the house here, and I'm a kind of the average user. I turn some lights on and off. I haven't gone to the thermostat yet, so I don't have one of those. I will here at some point. I might have a garage door opener in the future here that's connected in some way. Why? And I've got it all kind of working at this point, but what would be the advantage to me to upgrade or to purchase a hub from you guys? And what would I get with that I may not get just using all the other apps that come along with it?
Yeah. So a lot of people start home automation, and I'll call it more on the smart home side, of just wanting to centralize all of these devices under one roof. Lighting is a big, gateway drug to getting into home automation. So if you've got some outside lights that you want to turn on or off at a specific time, that's a very easy thing to do. I've got some driveway lights that, come on about 30 minutes before sunset and then turn off at night. If you've got hallway lights or kitchen, a pantry or something like that, where you want to put a door sensor or a motion sensor, you can have those things trigger, and then based upon time of day or events, they can turn on. And then using things like presence, if you're not home, you can fake the lights coming on, or you can have them come on when you're coming into your house. So lighting control is a good kind of gateway to just having that. Like I have a long hallway from my master bedroom down to the living room there, and I have 2 dogs, and inevitably one of my dogs is always laying in the hallway, and at night I couldn't see him. So I just have some Hue light bulbs that turn on red at 1%, just enough to light the way and enough to pick out the dog on the tile. And I have stopped kicking the dog. So, and I'm telling you, at 2 a.m. kicking that dog, it hurts your toe. It doesn't really hurt the dog, but eventually something bad was going to happen. So there's a perfect example of just a simple, integration. Another simple integration, if just get a small little contact sensor. I'm sure I got one right here. Of course, it doesn't have the battery in it, but a small little. This is the former Iris, Gen 1 or Gen 2 sensors, and I've got a Gen 1 around here. But you could mount this on your garage door, and you could put a little contact sensor next to it, and it could tell you if you left your garage door open. That's a $20 or less solution of just a simple application that just says, hey, if that contact sensor is open after 30 minutes, send me a text message to say, hey, you left the garage door open. That may be just all the peace of mind that you need. I know a lot of people, I know some in the chat room, people are talking like MyQ and being able to turn on and off your open and close your garage door. But at the end of the day, that may be overkill for a lot of people, sure. Or an early thing. I just like to know if my garage door is open or not. And so that helps. Yeah. And again, it goes back to things that I've been burned by. And, I had a lot of times where my garage door was left open, and, then you start looking, where's that tool that I know I had? And,
Patrick, I routinely leave my garage door open at night. I didn't close it on the way in. It's open all evening. I don't check it on the way in, and I'd love to have a timer, right? You guys specialize in integration and if this then that type functionality as well, that it would say, hey, and I have a light down. I'd shut the basement lights off at 12:30. Like if I haven't shut them off at 12:30. That's also a good reminder to go to bed. Like if they go off and I'm still down here, I need to have my butt in bed. Tony, you kind of come at this, and I want to hear your story, Tony. Why did you bring this up? Don't forget to unmute as well. But why did you bring this up? Why'd you bring it to me? What are you looking for?
You can get my unabridged story on Home number 117 I did with Richard Gunther. But most people know that I was with Lowe's Iris, and we know where that went. In the kind of at the end, they did the right thing, as many tech companies don't. But the majority of my quote home automation system was really more about security. And I think I had between 50 to 60 devices. Easily 2/3 of those were security. And so, what were the items that were not? Thermostats, garage door openers, irrigation control, and so forth. And I was like, well, what will work with that as a replacement hub? Smart Things was the first thing. And then, shortly thereafter, I found out that Habitat would. And so I purchased both of those, and Smart Things, I guess the control away from the house was a good thing for me, but not all the devices would pair. And then there was discussion about Habitat, Gavin Campbell being a big supporter about that. And he is obviously a much smarter person about this than me. And I think later you ought to have him on and discuss it from a more technical perspective. But then, so from the initial unboxing, the Habitat hub, it's not just the size that fools you, but it's like there's no weight to it. And I opened up the box and I'm like, how can this thing do all the things that they're talking about? Well, it can. And the other issue is I'm laughing as Patrick talks about it. I also have gigabit internet, and it's not everything it cracks up to be. So the whole while as I'm setting everything up, I found out that I really need to beef up my network. And so the thing I'm going to look towards is ubiquity. But for now, so I thought, what I can do is I can buy this $99 box and probably still be able to use, I bet 30 some of the devices I had on Iris, because with Iris, you basically received a quote refund. You were able to keep the devices. And now with Habitat, I could continue to use the devices. So it really was a win for me. And when I was on Iris, the wife never really bought into Iris very well. So I was looking at separating out more home automation on one hand and more security on the other. So we were talking about it and the spousal acceptance factor, which with my wife, it's a pretty narrow acceptance factor, if you will. So she had the brand name recognition with Simply Safe. So we went with that for security, and she's actually using it. So that was a win. I mean, it's actually a big win. So on the home automation side is I can leave her intact. She has no issues. Everything works. And now on my home automation side, I can play around, and Habitat enables me to do that. So far I was able to basically continue to use my 2 garage door openers, my 2 thermostats, probably 20 some motion sensors and contact sensors. So I can kind of build out from there. So it really was a big win for me. So far, I think I've had the irrigation controller. I don't think it ever will work, and it wouldn't work with SmartThings either. My Schlage garage door opener on the access door to the garage couldn't get to pair with SmartThings or Habitat. But one of the Habitat community members, because I think it's really, even though I guess took it out of the Iris app, I still think it's not, I don't know the proper term, kind of disassociated itself. I don't think that ever went right. So one of the very supportive members on the Habitat forum gave me some hints about it, but I just finished 10 days in a row at work, 110 or 20 hours. So I haven't had time to do that, but I'm going to. And it's funny, you held up that version 2 contact sensor. That is the other one thing I could not get to pair with Habitat. All my Gen 1s did. Just that one sensor for some reason would not. And I think 1 out of my 3 fire and carbon monoxide detectors. But everything else, $99 box, 30 some devices, still using them. So it's just a big win for me.
Patrick, can you talk a little bit about, so Tony just mentioned a whole bunch of devices, some connected, some didn't. What are you guys certainly keeping up? Like the number of devices using home automation have exploded in the last 3 years while you've been doing this. How are you guys keeping up with those automation integrate? Do you have to buy every single piece? Do you have people ship you stuff? How does that work?
Yeah, I have a litany of devices here that I use to just test various things. We've got a head of devices and integrations that has a whole pile of things that aren't even opened yet. It's tough. We decided we wanted to support standards, and maybe we could take just a little bit of time to talk about those. The 2 primary standards out there are Zigbee and Z-Wave. And so we support those out of the box. We're a Zigbee HA 1.2 compliant program. If you have Zigbee 3, which is the current latest standard, it is backward compatible with Zigbee HA 1.2. In fact, it is Zigbee HA 1.2 inside there. And so anything Zigbee home automation related is going to connect and work within Habitat. Now, when I say that, the biggest challenge, especially because we're a relatively new player to that, and Tony talked about it, is it's tough to migrate from one system to another, because sometimes those hubs like to hang on to their associations with different things. And Zigbee's pretty straightforward. You pretty much factory reset the device and it should pair up. Every once in a while things get a little crazy, and a reboot or something along those lines, because it is basically a little computer. You get that working. Z-Wave, on the other hand, is another competing standard. Z-Wave is a great standard because there's so many devices out there. I don't know the exact number, but I mean the Z-Wave Alliance, which is now owned by Silicon Labs, or not Z-Wave Alliance. Z-Wave itself is owned by Silicon Labs. They've just hit the market with a ton of Z-Wave devices. And the great thing about Z-Wave is it's a pretty good standard in the fact that a door lock's a door lock, a light switch is a light switch, and a motion sensor is a motion sensor. So we have a whole bunch of generic drivers that cover Z-Wave and Zigbee devices for the most part out there. So like you said, there's so many different devices, but if they follow the standard pretty good, chances are out of the box, it's going to pair and it's going to match up to one of our generic drivers, or you can set it manually. One of the other really cool things about Habitat is we have an integrated code editor for both apps that you can write or install, and drivers as well. So we give you full access to the hub by community developers that have ported or created their own drivers and apps. So if there's a device that we don't support right now, chances are somebody in the community has already tackled it or is willing to tackle it. Perfect case in point, Xiaomi's got these really inexpensive Zigbee sensors. They don't necessarily follow the Zigbee standards. So from a philosophical point, we can't support them directly because they do some things that aren't standard and they cause some problems in certain situations. But we have tons of users using Xiaomi sensors with Habitat. They just have to install the drivers from the community. And that kind of extensibility gives us a tremendous amount of flexibility to create that. Now, we'll take those two standards and then we'll talk about other standards, or I'll even put that in air quotes, standards. A lot of people talk about Wi-Fi devices today, and Wi-Fi was a big buzzword around CES. And talking about Wi-Fi is like talking about cars, right? Cars aren't all equal, and all Wi-Fi devices aren't equal. In fact, most Wi-Fi devices are effectively just connections to the cloud, and then you're talking to the cloud with your app or what have you. You're never rarely talking directly to the device. And so we call those cloud connected devices. We have a few integrations with those cloud connected devices, but for the most part, Wi-Fi is kind of the Wild West. There's no standard. There's no way to say, okay, on this IP address and this port, send this command and that light's going to turn on. It just isn't. Zigbee and Z-Wave have those standards. It's kind of like cameras today too, which is another thing. And so Wi-Fi devices maybe not be able to connect, but we give you full LAN access to the network stack. So if there's an HTTP API that's public or private, you can connect to it. We give you web sockets. We give you Telnet support, believe it or not, old school Telnet that you can connect to. And a whole lot of other things, including something I'll let everybody know here publicly. I think it's the first time we've shared it publicly. Is next version we're going to be betaing a MQTT client integration, so you can even take those. And I'm sure there's folks in the chat room. MQTT. MQTT is like one of those things like, that's where you pull out the geek cred and you're like, oh hey, I'm doing MQTT, aren't you? And it's like code word. I love it. It's awesome. But it wasn't like the thing, like, the average consumer, it's kind of like Fight Club. First rule, everybody must MQTT, and then, you don't talk about it. So it just does it. So we're going to be having that support, which is going to be really cool. And looking forward to it, to seeing how people go nuts with that as well. But for the most part, we'll connect to pretty much anything on your LAN that does have an API. So perfect example of that is Sonos. So if you got some Sonos speakers, we'll discover them, we'll connect to them. We just added a Google Chromecast integration, so you can discover and do text to speech. So we've got a built-in text to speech engine. Actually requires the cloud for that, but it caches it locally. So one time creates that, so you could have it tell you the weather in the morning if you wanted to, or what have you. And let's see, what else do we have for local? We've got a bunch of other stuff that runs local from an integration. And then there's the cloud connected devices, and that's your Ecobees and other things that you have to go out to the internet, connect to it, and integrate with that. And we do all of that directly off the hub. So it poses some challenges with some of the technologies out there, but we've got, like I said, an amazing engineering team that looks at those challenges and said, yeah, we can get around that. We can figure it out.
Patrick, one of the things a lot of folks worry about is they got this home automation, and until the internet goes down, are you saying, so for even cloud connected devices, if I have everything connected through your hub and my internet goes down, things are still going to work? Is that what you're telling me?
No. We don't have any magic bullet that allows the internet to work without an internet connection. That would be great. No. So if you do connect to the cloud, so if you connect to an Ecobee server or what have you, and unfortunately their services have been up and down, and I happen to have 2 Ecobees in my house, and so every once in a while I'm like, I can't connect to it. Everything else will stay working. So in fact, at CES we were demoing a Philips Hue bridge with a Lutron Smart Bridge Pro, using a Pico remote to change the color of the light bulb, and we were doing it all without an internet connection. So that's from my standpoint. I think it's important to look and source for devices that aren't cloud dependent. And I know there's some chat about thermostats, and thermostats are near and dear to my heart because I have 4 of them in this house. Believe it or not, living in Southern California, you would think you wouldn't need air conditioning, but it does get a little hot here.
It's a little warm down there.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
And so you know, electricity is really expensive out here. And I'm getting, even though I've got 42 solar panels on the roof, we now get this time of use thing. So if you can cut off your usage from 4 to 9, you save a whole bunch of money. So I'm preparing for the summer here because I had massive electricity bills last summer. And so I'm going to be automating it to a certain point. And at least with Ecobee, the programming, the scheduling that you do in Ecobee runs locally. So even if the internet's out, your schedule still work. Can't say that about other thermostats, but a lot of our users will use Z-Wave thermostats or even a Zigbee thermostat. Lux has one that we support, and so they're kind of like dumb smart thermostats, right? They don't necessarily have programming on them. You use our thermostat controller built-in app, so you can actually schedule that. And then again, all of that's going to work locally, regardless of your internet connection. I know last show you guys were talking about backup power. You know, so if you lose power, well, chances are things aren't going to work unless you've got UPSs all over the place. But we did have some users who, the last hurricane that came through North Carolina, they were talking about. We had a couple users who were like, yeah, I had a backup generator going. All my automations worked in the middle of a hurricane. You know, so things I could care less about in the middle of a hurricane. But
I was going to say that's probably not the
our users
first
are
thing.
About this stuff.
No,
my automation still worked.
Tony, you mentioned a second ago about the community, and community is a big aspect of what we do here. It sounds like you've plugged in a little bit with that already.
Yeah, I wanted to fall back on a few things that he was saying. First of all, those were factory reset. And when you have a device, and fortunately, one of the community members, I was having a few problems with a few devices, and I had finally worked it out. But then he sent me a sheet about how to factory reset a few devices. Because you go searching and you find different information and you find that it's all wrong. And that was a frustrating part of it alone. Another thing, I was literally sitting at the dining room table and I had about 5 contact sensors and a few problems here and there. And I'm like, oh my God, let me just reboot this thing. And reboot, all of a sudden, all 5 showed up. And I'm like, okay, which one of these 5 is it? So you better make sure you work on one device at a time. Another problem, I won't say a problem, but since it does not have a wireless component, I guess the idea is, you have the hub and you bring the thing to the hub. But my system was already set up, so I had to bring the hub to the thing. And so fortunately, I have one of those, I guess it's wireless with the Ethernet port on the side. My son thinks he has Ethernet. Like, no, you really don't. You're just plugging the cable into the wireless thing. But fortunately, I was able to use that, and that way I could transport the Habitat hub around the house. So that really came in handy a lot. But yeah, the community is really, and that is actually one of the reasons I went with Habitat was the strength of the community.
Patrick, how do you guys foster that community involvement? I mean, that's not an easy thing to do. You got a bunch of, anytime 2 or more gather, there's conflict. So how do you guys foster the community involvement? What do you do?
We all participate in it. Everybody inside Habitat is actively, participating. Anybody who's doing engineering or marketing or what have you, they're on there, whether or not they're posting, but they're reading, they're pulling that type of stuff out. And I've been building communities since the early mid 90s, actually, going back to pre-internet days, actually early 90s with BBSs, believe it or not. So it's just a matter of, being real, getting in there and talking about things, being as transparent as we can. We make one promise that other than the mobile app, which has been perpetually coming soon for the last year, we don't talk about features. We only talk about what's available today. And we have what we call our feature list. Anytime anybody's got a good idea, we throw it on there and we acknowledge it. And then internally we build that up. But I think fundamentally the thing that has built our community so well is we use this stuff. This is our passion. This is what we love to do. And there are a lot of passionate folks about it. And it can get very deep and technical. But the reality is, our goal with Habitat is you don't need to ever write a single bit of code. You don't need to be a programmer to use it. We're going to continue to make it easier and easier to use. But I'd much rather have a really complex system that takes a while to learn, but can do almost everything than a really pretty interface that can't do much. So we know that that's one of our challenges there, and our community really provides that feedback. But I think more importantly, we listen. And we try to get inside of that. And I think too many companies put too many barriers to their customers, and that's something that we feel very strongly about. Is we're going to stay and listen and participate, and it is a user to user community because we are users, and so we're just out there trying to help other people just like anybody else would help.
Mike, I'm going to throw it to you in just a second to see if you're convinced after listening to this, right? If you're going to give this a try. But Mark Robson was saying in the chat room that he had been using If This Then That for an integration with a door lock, and then they stopped like supporting that integration. And you guys have these kind of built in and local, right, to make this work if I want to put these things together. So talk how you're different than If This Then That, and more than it's just not going to the cloud, but how are you guys different in that area of actually the actual software automation?
Sure. So first of all, we do actually have an IFTTT integration. So if you are using IFTTT, you can connect your Habitat ecosystem to IFTTT and work that way both ways. But the built-in app that drives everything is a program called Rule Machine. And Rule Machine is kind of like If This Then That, but a local point and click interface to building rules. It's pretty easy to. I just saw Gavin talk about our passionate teams. Yeah, there's some passionate discussions. I mean,
like I said, we're two or more gathered. There's conflict.
That's right. I think we're closing in, if we haven't crossed it already, almost 100,000 posts in under a little over a year, actually.
That's great. That's great.
But yeah, so Rule Machine is kind of the end all be all for rule creation and management. But we have a dozen other apps. One of them is Habitat Safety Monitor that is really a safety and security system. You can arm and disarm it like a traditional security system. You can use all your context sensors, motion sensors. I'll tell you another application that I use, and I use it in Habitat Safety Monitors. I have a whole bunch of water sensors. They're cheap little $20 water sensors. I put them on every sink and toilet and what have you, because this has saved me now 3 times from a flooded basement in Minnesota and a flooded bathroom already here in Southern California. My daughter was cleaning, accidentally bumped the water line that goes up to the. See, this is a great thing when you're on camera. As you guys know, your IQ drops 40%. Right?
Totally. No, keep going. You're good. You're
and so I get an alert. I'm like, oh, there's water underneath my daughter's bathroom. So you hurry up. And some people even automate water shutoff valves. So you can actually have the water shut off to your house and have that work from an automation standpoint. I just want to be alerted. I want to know that something's going on, and then I can take action or call somebody. And I'll share with and I'm shiny object syndrome at this point. It's a lot of fun. But I had a competing product. I actually had a family place up in Wyoming, and one of the founders of that company had talked about how this great product was used to monitor remote buildings and cabins and that type of stuff. So I thought, hey, this would be perfect. So I put it in and put a temperature sensor in there down in the basement because we had a problem with freezing pipes. We had a caretaker who, once a week would stop by and take a look at the house. And so I gave him access to the app, and I said, hey, take a look at this, keep monitoring the temperature. You don't have to stop by all the time unless the temperature reads. Well, of course, I get a call from a neighbor going, I think there's a problem in your house. There's ice coming out of your windows. And I'm like, that's a problem. And so I called the caretaker and I said, well, why haven't you been over there? He goes, I keep opening up the app and that sensor keeps telling me that the battery's at 1%.
Yikes.
It's not going to tell you that it's dead. Okay.
Yeah,
and that was a flaw in that system, and it still is today. And it's a tough thing to do that. So, I said, you're going to have to replace some batteries every once in a while. So that system I thought was monitoring my house wasn't monitoring my house. It was just telling me I still had 1% battery left.
Right. Yeah. The human is always the weak link, right? In these equations. Could I, and Uyghur, I'm going to come to you next, but I have these Home 8 devices that I bought that I hate the Home 8 hubs. And I think, are you familiar with Home 8 and the equipment that they make?
I'm not.
Okay, well, I'll have to, but could this be, let's say in theory, could I resurrect? I still have some of their door sensors, and I still have, I've got a motion sensor in here that was part of it. I didn't want to use their hub anymore, and I wasn't interested in doing that. But if it was Zigbee or Z-Wave, chances it could come up on the
It's possible, yeah. If they follow any standards, I'm just briefly going through their website. I don't know. Chances are it was probably a 433 megahertz cheap. Are they pretty big sensors? I'm not even.
Yeah, they're pretty big. Yeah,
Yeah. So my guess is they were probably proprietary sensors.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that's but it's one of those kinds of things, right? Though, if it's fairly modern in the last year or two, or maybe even 3, if they were using some of those standards, it may be something I could resurrect and bring back on, right?
It's possible. I'm trying to look at pictures of what these sensors look like. Yeah, they've got a tri sensor. Yeah, I don't see anything specific that says it's Zigbee or Z-Wave.
Okay.
Now, if they had an API, local or cloud, we could write, or someone could write an integration. But you connect their equipment through their API to the
no worries. Just a thought. Uyghur, you're the one who's kind of thinking through this, and like after what you've heard over the last 48 minutes, what do you think? You might be muted. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, let me check my mic there. No, it's very intriguing to me because what I have been thinking about recently is, okay, how do I expand my, home automation offering? And when you talk about the Wi-Fi versus Zigbee or Z-Wave, that's been a big sticking point to me is, what devices are which, and do I have a hub that interacts with any of them? And to date, I have not, to be honest. So a lot of my devices have either had a hub themselves. We think of like Hue light bulbs, for example, right? Have the hub themselves, and then they communicate to the cloud that way. Or I've had things that have been Wi-Fi, which is Wemo or all of my security cameras. And then like Tony, I have a ton of SimpliSafe devices. So I went with SimpliSafe for my security, which... Tony, you'll have to correct me. I actually don't even know what standard SimpliSafe uses besides Wi-Fi to connect to the network, and that's how I access the systems. Tony, do you know? Even are those like some sort of standard? Are those their own? Are they? No, they're Bluetooth, I think, right?
It's Wi-Fi. I simply don't know.
I think they're Bluetooth.
I know it works.
They're actually 433 megahertz as well, so they're proprietary.
Okay, so they're proprietary. Yeah. But from what you've been telling me, this is perfect. What I've been looking for is something that's actually local to my home that I'm able to expand upon. Because right now I don't. I'm not married to a system. I don't have a standard I'm married to. And to be honest, all the different apps I have to load and that my wife, to be honest, has to open and close is kind of a chore. So if I can get into one system or a hub, I don't even want to call it a system because your hub connects to a lot of different systems, right? There are multiple different systems we can connect into this. It's a big sticking point to me. I think that would be very interesting. And I love what you said, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I heard, like the kind of a security offering, right? Where you guys have connections to, open and close sensors and water sensors, which is exactly, SimpliSafe, all it is really for me is like 8 open and close sensors. I got 3 water sensors. I got a smoke alarm and some other a glass break sensor, some motion sensors, things like that. All of those could be Zigbee or Z-Wave. And if I wasn't tied to a system, to be honest with you, I'm not really that worried about having 911 support. To be honest, like really, if someone breaks into my house and if they trigger 911, cool. But nowadays, most people expect that if an alarm's going off in the home, police are coming and they get out of there really quick anyway. And the fact that my system alerted them or anything like that is not really too important to me. But I pay a system like that to have access to those sensors. So if I could build out a system where this was connected via Zigbee, Z-Wave, and Habitat has the hub right here where I have access to all of that, man, I could really save myself. I could build my own security system, which really, and to be honest, a lot of this community that we have right here is a lot of community that wants to build their own. We love that. That is so much fun for us. And having a hub here that could do that, I'm like starting to get all these ideas in my head of what I could do around this. I'm thinking, okay, you already mentioned Hue lights works with it. Okay, so there's all my lights in my home, which already have the Wi-Fi acceptance factor, except for the fact that it takes them 3 seconds to turn on or off, depending on what I'm using. Am I using IFT to trigger them? Am I using HomeKit to trigger them from my iPhone? Am I using Amazon Alexa to trigger them from the voice app? It all depends. And a lot of times it takes a very long time for those to trigger. And that's saying if they trigger at all.
Yeah.
So having a local system is very interesting to me, especially because I have lights that often do not turn on or turn off based on their schedule. And a lot of them are outdoor lights where I really depend on that. That is a part of my security. So I take security very seriously around my home. Like that is something you ask my wife, she knows like security for me is number one. And if lights are not turning on and off when I want them to, that's a big deal to me. And right now they're not. So having a local system that's not reliant on the cloud could be a huge solve for what I'm looking for.
Yeah, you mentioned, I look at it, security systems, the two most effective things that it does is it gives you peace of mind. And the most effective part of a security system is the sign in your front yard, right?
Totally true. Exactly.
And
Yes.
I always joke that, the only good thing about my security system was it was really good at generating false alarms. And so, I still have a monitored security system that I use, and I actually use Abode, which is very similar to Simply Safe. But the main reason I do it is for that is the insurance certificate. I get a pretty large deduction on my insurance that more than pays for this type of stuff. But and we're trying to spend a lot of time lobbying these folks in the insurance industry to say that these people who are investing in DIY products, and there are some insurers that are taking on this cause that says, yeah, if you provide your own system and you're actively monitoring it, like you said, that's your peace of mind. You know who to call, what to do, but again, it's that assurances that the garage door is closed. And now with Wise cameras for $25 on Amazon, you can get that to plug it into the garage, and you can pull it up on your phone and see that the garage door is closed. Or you can use a $20 sensor to do that too. You may not want to close it, or maybe you do, but at least it's open, it's closed. I have a rule that I've had in my house. At 10 o'clock. All the outside perimeter doors lock, and if they aren't already locked, because, out here in Southern California, we like leaving doors open and all that type of stuff. And, so it's that peace of mind, right? It's that peace of mind that I don't have a leak someplace, and these are the things that unfortunately it usually takes an incident. Most security systems are put in after the first burglary or break-in, and not before. And most security systems aren't armed the first time that a break-in occurs too. So, around that peace of mind, build your peace of mind, not necessarily a fully monitored, system that you're paying $40, $50 a month to monitor for.
Right.
Mike, I want to break in a minute. When I was watching videos about Habitat, I was a little intimidated. He was going through all the different pages, and I was like, yeah, is this really for me or not? But then I received it, and I'll say it, my best analogy is akin to tweaking your router. I mean, so the way the interface and
don't tell me that, Tony, because you know how much I love tweaking my router.
Yeah,
so
a little personal, but
Wait a minute.
I was gonna say,
let's calm down on this tweaking of routers things. Okay, I know what that's.
But it's not nearly as intimidating as I thought it would be. And another thing I don't think they mentioned yet is about the dashboards.
Sure.
And so some of the members have done that. They buy these cheap tablets and so forth, and they leave the dashboards up and they mount them. And now, you have your grids, and you can do multiple dashboards and multiple layouts and so forth. And say you mount it on the wall, and there you see, this is my sensor open or closed. This is the battery level, the garage door open or closed or so forth, from your laptop and so forth. So that would, done right, that could be a pretty big spousal acceptance factor on that part.
And Tony, you're running a hybrid system, so I'm interested because you run Simply Safe like I do, plus a lot of sensors. How does that all interact? What are you using the two for individually?
Well, I trust none of them so far. So I do have a garage door camera looking at the garage doors, because even I think they're basically rebranded linear garage door openers. Yeah. And I had one that was great and one was problematic with Iris. And I'm getting the same thing on Habitat as well. So I think I just got a device that it's not sits in itself open or closed correctly. And that was kind of Habitat. It's kind of a stopgap measure. And I may eventually replace those. I may eventually replace my thermostats. I'm going to have to replace my irrigation controller. but it still enables me to use so many other devices in the interim. And before I got caught in a proprietary system, well, now I buy nothing that can't be used on many, say with Amazon or Google or, Habitat, as well. So I don't get locked in once again.
Right. Okay.
Patrick, when we think about, you talked about the apps, you've just come out with the Android and iPhone. Is that right? Did I hear that right?
Soon to come out. Yeah.
Oh, soon. Okay.
Yeah. That's a kind of a joke around here and that's a long story for a lot more alcohol. Yeah, we are in testing right now. You would look, if we were cloud-based, it would be so much easier. I'll admit, it would be so much easier to just have all your device data out in the cloud and then just have the device, the app just hit that. But we don't. So we've got to get back to your hub and connect that, and that's not an easy task to do reliably. So we're working on it. We're just working the last little kinks out to make it as user friendly as we can. And CNET reporter said that we were going to release it in April. I don't know where he got that. I never told him that. But since that was published, we've been kind of internally going, we should probably have it out by then. So as I'm looking at the calendar, we got
12 days.
So it'll be in beta in April. Let me put it that way.
You can always correct it on Home Gadget Geeks, right? Like, because this is the source they come to.
Everybody will listen to this.
And so, but we love the coverage we have on CNET. Those guys are great too. But he came by at CES and he's like, "Where's the app?" And I'm like, "We don't have the app." He's like, "I want to do a story on the app." And I'm like, "We don't have the app yet." And so, a lot of people are waiting for the app. But honestly, the app is just going to have access to your dashboards and give you presence and geofencing. So, this is a design philosophy that we said. We're not going to allow you to administrate your hub from outside your house without you adding a VPN or something like that. That to me is a division of labor that I think is important. If you can't get into your own house, well, we can't, and hackers can't, because there's just no way to get to the interface unless you do something crazy like port forward your hub, which I do not recommend at all. Do not do that. In fact, we've caught a few people doing it. We've asked them to stop doing it because it's not it's not a good practice. Jamie's good. Beta in August. Yeah, all right, or April. I didn't say which April, by the way.
That's true.
There you go.
Could be 2020. You bet.
We don't like talking about futures, but we've had this long-standing challenge with the mobile app, and like I said, it's just it is not easy to do correctly. There are apps out there that are really not all the greatest connectivity there. So, and like I said, if we had all your data, it would be easy. We don't have any of your data. We don't want any of your data. It's a tough thing to get to that point.
Yeah. No worries on that. We won't hold you to that. We're not that kind of podcast. Tony, any other thoughts, questions you might have as we got?
Absolutely.
So fire away.
Yeah, there was one big one that's kind of been looming in the back of my mind. And, you mentioned about having Ring on earlier, and that's a success story, and Eero success story. Well, we know where they both ended up. They were seen as a, big product, very successful. So long-term, I was thinking, selling a $90 hub, a $100 hub, a one-shot deal, is that long-term? Is that financially viable? I know I can't ask you to predict the future, but far as further revenue stream to stay around.
Well, we think it is. Otherwise we wouldn't be doing this. And I can tell you, we have some pretty bright people behind the scenes who've way smarter than me have already figured out the financials. So, we are a self-funded startup. So, the reality is this is a bootstrap effort that, that gets this job done. And, a lot of people think that, these cloud-based solutions needed a ton of money to fund themselves because, these cloud bills get really, really expensive and it scales. And those are the ones that I always question. How can they scale? Because I know what those costs are, and I know how much data is being shoved out to the cloud, and all that transaction and all that traffic costs money. And the only way to pay that back on a $78 hub or a $99 hub is to utilize your data in other ways. Whether they're doing that or not, I don't know. But we wanted to make sure that we didn't store any of that stuff. So we don't have those huge costs. We just have a small relay that gets back to your hub. So that we handle that securely, and so we keep our costs down quite substantially when it comes to those types of things, so that we can make this work. One of the things that especially former iOS users who were able to just pick up the phone and talk to somebody, now they may not have been able to answer a question and could just basically do the Google search for them. We just do email support, but all of us are in the community and chatting with people, and we'll answer questions on a Sunday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or 2 a.m. on a Friday night. So the reality is we're helping people, I think, far better. And you're talking to the people that actually write the code rather than somebody who reads from a script that answers a phone. So a lot of those costs, we've managed quite successfully, because a lot of us that are part of this have run big businesses or small businesses. We know the costs that go into this. So I can't get into the financials for obvious reasons, but we're real happy about where we are today, and we're really excited, with our new hub, that tiny little hub that we didn't even bother putting weights in it to weigh it down to, which is, if you've ever cracked a hub or any of these, electronic stuff that they feel weighty and heavy, it's because they put weights in them. I remember the manufacturer coming, "You want to put weights in this? This is really light." I'm like, "No." I want that reaction from Tony that says, "I can't believe they have all this power in this tiny little thing."
Back in the day, I bought a Garmin 220 running watch that when I took it out of the package, it was so light. I thought it was a knockoff. I thought I had been, robbed in some way, and I turned it on and it worked just fine. So that speaks to the lightness of it. And what it speaks to a little bit too is we've gotten to that point where those radios are so efficient. We've gotten to the point where the boards are so great that you can do that. For those that are listening on audio only and don't get a chance to see the video, this thing 3x3, would I be right? 3 inches?
A little bit, yeah.
Maybe an inch thick.
Less than an inch. Yeah.
Just
around here, I'd give you that.
Just for our audio listeners, Tony, what else do you have? What other questions?
Yeah. One of the forums, once again for Lowe's Iris, was Living with Iris, and a pretty active forum group. And now they've obviously had to branch out since Iris is no more.
Yep.
And there's, kind of sub forums. And one of those is Habitat. And so I cruised that right before the podcast. And one of the things they were bringing up was documentation. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I read that, I said, well, that will be a lot of documentation for a hub that covers so many things. Because I even went to your site and looked at your videos and so forth. I think maybe a dozen or more. And the first 2 of those, there were some playback problems, but otherwise they were pretty handy. And I think it's one of those things like, Michael find out you have to get the product in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And once you do that, and, it kind of comes with a simple setup card, and you go to the site and it, kind of walks you through, you reboot it, you pair devices, kind of the built-in skills that you mentioned. We have Chromecast and, IFT and Alexa and the thermostats and so more, because that was one of the weird things for me when I was trying SmartThings. You could pair your thermostat, but I couldn't find a way to do it, just a traditional schedule without doing some sort of add-on to it. I kind of found that odd personally. But there is a lot built into the hub, and really an impulse buy at that price.
Yeah, you bring up and I mentioned it earlier. We give you a blank canvas, and there is an art form to this of building automations the way you want it. And we specifically wanted the interface to be Spartan, because we didn't want to, just pigeonhole you into one path and say, hey, you have to do it this way with our devices. That walled garden approach. For some people who, I remember some of the Iris users who came over early on, they were really upset that we didn't have a way to transition them and all this documentation and everything. And I agree with them. We didn't know Iris was shutting down. You guys didn't know Iris was shutting down. They even said you couldn't connect Iris Generation 1 Zigbee devices to any other hub. One of our engineers, Mike Maxwell, who's like, it's Zigbee, we should be able to figure this out. So he reverse engineered it. Had a proof of concept video up, and then 2 weeks later, we're releasing it as a full-blown integration. So, That's the kind of stuff that we just kind of go, we can do this. We have the flexibility and the capability to do it. And we realized there were a bunch of Iris users out there. Now, I had never used Iris, so I didn't realize how very narrow focused it was in walking you through it. You had to tell it what device you wanted to pair, and then you had to pair it, and then you had to move on. So we actually did spend some time redoing our pairing process that you've seen now, and we'll continue to improve that. And so there are a lot of things that we can build on and make it better. But yeah, you choose what you want to install. So if you want to install Habitat Safety Monitor or Rule Machine or our Maker API, which gives you a full RESTful API with a whole bunch of gets that you can get all the device statuses, you can send commands, all that fun stuff. A lot of people are doing integrations that way. Or Habitat Dashboard. You choose what you want to install. So it's like getting a phone, right? And you choose which apps you want to install on it. Because we know that even though we probably need to go down that path of pre-installing a whole bunch of stuff and setting it up and giving you some ideas on how to do that, we started with that blank slate. We wanted to just say, hey, it's the old Latin tabula rasa. We want to just give you that ability to build it the way you want to build it. And then we watch how you are doing that. We can't see it, but we that's why our community is so important. Is we see how people are doing it. We know that dashboards are so personal, and you go through our forums and you'll see that people are doing some amazing things with dashboards, and that's why we spent a whole lot of time rewriting dashboard, because we knew that for certain groups of people, again, a blank slate, you can add your grids, you can add your devices, you can add backgrounds, you can add videos, you can have all kinds of stuff. I saw one guy that did an animated GIF in the background. He posted a video to YouTube. He's like, my Google device doesn't work, my Amazon device doesn't work, but somebody's got to explain to me why Habitat's dashboard is still working without internet. And I'm like, it's running local. So yeah. But one of our goals is to keep building video out for tutorials, because we know a lot of people like that. When we first started out, it was kind of a running joke. We didn't have time to build documentation. We were changing stuff so rapidly that we don't build to documentation. We build to the demand, and so it took us good 6 months after launch before we had a full set of documentation out there. And so we try to keep that up to date. But I'd much rather be adding features and focusing on stability than getting the documentation looking pretty. And I know that frustrates some people, but at the same time, I think we're better off for the people that want to come along the journey with us. Is you do have to kind of figure it out. But boy, I really like driving my car, but I didn't hop into it and back up and parallel park the first day either. So
Patrick, would you say, when we think about, we call this the Average Guy Network. I created these podcasts back in the day, kind of for the average guy, because technology was hard. Is your solution, though, kind of more targeted to the above average? In other words, I kind of need, I'm not going to necessarily give this to my friends and say, make this thing work. Or would I?
Look, many people will argue over this. I used to say, yeah, we're aimed at the tinker, the DIYer. Mm-hmm. I think if you've got a passion to do home automation in some way, shape, or form, I truly believe we're the best solution out there. Yes, you do have to learn the system. Yes, things aren't as intuitive as they could be, but it's capable of it. And our customers tell us that over and over and over again. So when you want the most robust, capable home automation system that you can buy and get commercial support for, we're that answer. And being local and being able to work, and I feel bad for Iris users, and they had their system shut off, with 90 days notice. We can't do that. So we're the only hub out there that you can disconnect it from the internet, and you can just say, I'm never doing another update. I'm never doing it. And as long as you've got that hub still working, and there's no moving parts. So, it'll run, until the dang thing smokes and dies, So, so that there's safety in that. And then I kind of look at it, you see a lot of people who will go to these other systems that are cloud-based, and they don't realize how much data they're pushing out there, into the world. There's a lovely news article. Some researchers put together a program. I think it's, again, I'm blanking on which university now backed it, but it's an open source product. You can actually now spot on all your IoT stuff and see how much data is going out there. And it's shocking, how much of, personal data, identifiable data, these devices are sending out to the internet to who knows where. And so that's another part that, as you get educated, it's like, it's important to realize that, privacy is one of those things where people go, I don't care, or it's a huge deal. There's no middle ground there, right?
No, right on. We hear this from our listeners all the time. The ones, back in the day when the NSA was listening to everybody, or at least we thought, it was super passionate. It was everybody, or it was, well, okay, there's some select individuals that are doing it. Tony, you had said you threw the name of the.
Yeah, it's called a Princeton IoT Inspector.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's a Mac only tool right now, but it looks like they may be bringing it to Windows or Linux. And I want to fall back again on what he just said. Would I give this to my mother? Oh no.
Right.
Like I say, I don't work in technology, computers, but it is my hobby. I could do it.
But Tony,
I don't write code, but you can if you want to.
Would you install it for your mom though? So say she wanted home automation. Would you put a solution like this in where you set it up like you would traditional home automation, set up the dashboards for her and say, don't mess around? I don't know. What do you think?
She lives 5 hours away and she only started texting within the last year. So probably not.
Okay. So maybe that's a bad example. Patrick, as an installer, would this be a device I could use, set up people's, put it in, set up people's dashboards for them, say, don't monkey with this, because I think there's a whole group of population who, once it's set up, they're not gonna mess with it, right?
You hit a perfect. So our first alpha, actually here in San Diego, had not rebooted their hub for over a year. It was running the same version. They didn't even know the hub existed. We put it in and they forgot about it. Everything just worked, and so that's the type of thing that we look at. It's like, you've got to have a passion for wanting to set this up, and seeing the benefit of it. And it's not hard to see the benefit when you've actually gone through and do that. But you hit the nail right on the head. We don't want, we love our tinkerers. We love the people who are constantly tweaking and playing around with it. But I think our core user is somebody who's going to spend a weekend setting this stuff up and then never touch it again, right? And when we track versions, the only thing we know about the hub is every day it checks in. That's all, because it's got to check to see if there's a version available. And so we just know what version you're running. That's it. And we just did this today. We were looking at the number of versions that are out there that people haven't updated, and because there's no reason for them. And so the vast majority of our customers are updating the latest, and we love that. But there are people who are just happy as clams as these devices just it just works. So like my mother example, if the kitchen pantry, how often do you come into the house with a bag full of groceries and you're like trying to elbow that light, and at my parents' house, the light switch is on the wrong side of the house, or the pantry, what have you. You just open the door, the light turns on, 5 minutes later, the light turns off, simple stuff like that. Peace of mind stuff like water monitoring, those simple apps where you can just take a few devices and put it together. Yeah, that's a great opportunity. And, I'll do the shameless plug thing for $89 and a few sensors. That peace of mind is pretty darn cheap. No monthly fees or anything along those lines.
No, we have a lot. I come out of a home server. Tony had mentioned this earlier. This podcast is kind of born out of a home server podcast that we did 10 years ago, where we were all, building these multi-terabyte, servers in our homes. And a lot of the guys were doing this for family members. So while it was a bad example on Tony, Mike, maybe a better example to you, your mom and dad, would you install this in their house and just turn it over to them, knowing what you know about it? Your parents seem maybe a little more savvy. Do you think you'd do that?
Yeah, I totally would. And especially, because they have a few places where they're not there all the time, and then a main hub where they're at all the time. And I think this would be perfect for them. And like you said, if you can set it, forget it, and if it can run without the updates all the time. My mom is a creature of habit, like the rest of us, right? You get her set up on something. Like we set her up years ago on using an AirPlay speaker in the house that connects to their in-house. They have one of those in-house systems that spreads to speakers all over the house. And we set up an AirPlay speaker, and that is the one way she knows how to play music to the rest of the house. Like I've tried to teach her. I'm like, oh mom, now you got a bunch of other ways. There's Sonos, there's this, there's that. Nope, that is the one way she's gonna do it. So totally. I would, if this was a system that I could set up, forget, let it sit there and run in the background and let them have a hub for all their smart home, perfect. And that's what actually, honestly, it's what I've been looking for too for them, because they've been looking for this sort of system where it's one system that does this sort of control. They're not one to log in and do updates, and they're not one. And my mom is a security freak. If I told her I can't even access this from outside your home without a VPN, they don't know I have a VPN in their house. I do. But now they know. Yeah. Well, now they know, right? Because they watch the show. But before this show, they didn't think I did.
Right.
But if they knew that there was no cloud access, this is exactly what someone in my parents' generation wants. My mom is all about security. She doesn't want accessibility. I mean, she is an Apple fan and barely trusts HomeKit because of the amount of data they could send out. Yeah. So this is perfect for that scenario.
No, I think it's a really good scenario for it, where it's kind of system integrator, where you're going in, putting it in place, giving them instructions, maybe helping them set it up one time. And Mike, to your point, for those that are worried about security, you've really got a good Patrick. What about though, if you need to push, what if you find a flaw and you need to push something to get them to update? Well, how does that work?
Well, that's one of the challenges is, in theory, when that hub checks in, we have the ability to notify the hub that there's an update. But philosophically, we've decided that, you're responsible for your hub. And case in point, the ultimate security is no internet connection whatsoever. And so, if you truly want to be hacker proof, air gap the thing, at the end of the day, that's about as good as you're going to get. Yeah. And so, it is. I've had security researchers like, well, you need to push firmware updates. I'm like, it's a home automation system. I've heard horror stories after horror stories of cloud-based manufacturers pushing updates, and then it breaks something.
Breaking them.
And so we think that all automation is local. You should be in control of it. So it's one of those things. I haven't seen anybody perfect over-the-air updates. I just had the other day, my iPad, which I have on my bedside at like 2 a.m. in the morning, flashed a bright light and said, doing an update. It was a great way to wake up. It's my iPad,
So it's good philosophy.
I agree with you. Yes, that is a decision, is we made that decision. Is it technically possible for us to push an update out? Yes. Will we ever turn that on? I hope not. We'll certainly, we have other ways that we can effectively communicate to our customers, right? We know which version you're on and your hub's registered. So we can contact you and say, hey, it's pretty good that you either disconnect from the internet or upgrade your hub.
So you could, users register, you could push an email notification that says, hey, we've discovered a security vulnerability. You need to update to this version of the firmware.
Yeah, absolutely.
Patrick, any other? We're coming up on the end of our time here, and I've kept you a little longer than I thought. You've been very, 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 very kind to us. Anything else we didn't cover, or anything? You released a whole bunch of new information. I think you said 2 or 3 times. I think this is the first time I'm saying this, which you're very kind to say, by the way. But I appreciate that. Anything else that we didn't get that you want to throw in before we let you go?
The challenge, is one of awareness. And so I encourage our users to just, keep talking about it. And I really thank, Tony for his active participation on Twitter and in the community and everybody else. As Gavin mentioned, we are going to be launching something we call Habitat Live, where we're going to, continue to have these kinds of conversations, and really extend our community out there and show a lot of things that are going to be happening. And so we're going to do that every 2 weeks, which is really going to kind of coincide with our updates. Our platform updates are about every 2 weeks as well. So to try to just communicate out a little bit more effectively. And so, that's been the hardest challenge is, there's so many misconceptions and misunderstandings of what this space is. And for us, it's about control. You control what data you want to put out there. I think that's important. I'll just mention it because I know we've talked a lot about security, but as we look at the Google Home products and the Amazon products, I think I've been pretty good. I know the community's been, the live chat's been talking about anybody mentioning that
The name, the invoked name. Yes,
I'm trying to keep away from that because
you've done very well. Uyghur blew it, but you've done very well.
But that's always fun because my kids are so rude to those names that shouldn't be said, and it's getting belligerent now to the point. We set time to use it in the kitchen, and they're like, "Shut up!" But she responds that way. It's great.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But what I wanted to say is our integration with those services, unlike other competitors send every device data, every data point, everything that's going over to these cloud services, and people aren't aware of that. And so, one of the things that we make very clear when you set up a Google Home integration or an Amazon integration or any other integration is you have to choose the devices you want to connect to it. And that's important to me is you opt into what you're going to send out. And we don't ever send out anything automatically from that side of things. So, that security principle, again, you're in control. You have to learn how to use that and what that means. And some people will complain that it's a lot of extra clicks, but it's important. And so that's one of those areas. But I think, it's important for us to really emphasize the fact that we focused on reliability. That uptime, that run, things should just work. And so, whether it's integrating with Lutron or Philips Hue or Sonos as local devices go, we've always focused on local first, cloud second for integrations. But then Zigbee and Z-Wave devices, we want those things to work 100% of the time. And so, the challenge is always building out the mesh. And I know Tony mentioned one thing is he had to bring his hub around, and some people do that. There's a misconception about that. Most of the time, if it's not going to pair in place, it's probably not going to work well. So that's something that I try to emphasize to people, that pair it in place first, or at least try, and consider how mesh networks work. And I know we didn't get a whole lot of detail into that, but it's kind of like a spider web. The more connections, the more repeating that's happening, the better. But Z-Wave has some significant limitations. You can only have 4 repeaters to a device. So we need to build better tools to make people aware of that. Zigbee doesn't have that issue. So, there's some apples and oranges kind of things, but, that's one of the biggest challenges people have is building out a solid mesh. I've got 230 some devices on my system. And I think our highest count, we had somebody over 500 devices on their system. So it's, and on that tiny little hub. But I wouldn't recommend it. You really need to know what you're doing to do that. But for a handful of devices all the way up to really big systems, this platform can do it. I know you said we're just a hub, but because we built this system to have multiple hubs, we're seeing users now mature to the point in which they're building kind of like a hub and spoke concept, where they'll have different hubs scattered throughout the house, and then have a master control hub that does that. So there's all kinds of different configurations to be kind of infinitely expandable.
Let's make sure, this is an inside joke, but let's make sure we don't tell Dave McCabe you can have multiple hubs around his house, because he will definitely buy about 80 of these things. Tony, one more thought.
I'll give him a bulk deal. That's fine.
Going back to what he said, yeah, actually, most of my motion sensors and contact sensors did pair in place. But I guess the garage door sensors use secure pairing. One of those did secure in place. The other one only paired once I brought the hub very close to it. So it can be kind of how finicky the device wants to be as well.
Yeah, and especially on Z-Wave. Z-Wave is one of those things that, there's kind of 3 different generations of Z-Wave that are out there. And unfortunately, if you have one of these routers that doesn't want to pass the secure key through, or doesn't support something called network-wide inclusion, these things just won't work. And that's the unfortunate part of it. And that's where the ideal that you have to be closest to the hub. Z-Wave also has something called exclusion, which, again, one of the common misconceptions is that the owner of that device, so this is a wall moat by AOTech. It's a really cool little thing. It's got little 4 buttons from that side of things. But you can exclude a Z-Wave device from any Z-Wave controller. So even if this is paired to one Habitat hub, I could go and grab any Z-Wave controller and exclude it. So and that's one of those misconceptions. They think they have to exclude everything from their Iris hub or their Wink hub or their SmartThings hub or Vera before they bring it over. You can actually use the exclude option on Habitat to exclude Z-Wave devices before you include it. And that's usually a good indication. If it can't exclude, you probably aren't going to be able to include it. And so that's a good practice. And we just rewrote that discovery process. And so we're going to get some information out there, but I think, we'll continue to improve that communication. But the biggest challenge anybody's going to have is moving systems. And boy, if we could figure it out, and trust me, we've got a lot of spare time dedicated to trying to clone other systems and try to move it over. Nobody's made that easy. But if there's going to be a way that we're going to figure it out, how to at least move from one Habitat system to another, we're going to figure it out. And so that's something that we do spend a lot of time trying to figure out. We're hackers by heart. We like solving complex problems. But
I like it. Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see if we can do that.
The majority of them did pair quite quickly.
Yeah.
And why I say, make sure that you kind of do one at a time, because it'll come up with a generic name, so know which sensor you have. And I think this really is the best hub for Mike Uyghur. It really is. He's a tinkerer by heart. And with me, Iris, you have to operate in the confines of their paradigm. So now I'm like, with Habitat, I go, I can do this, then this, then this, So I'm having to think outside the box. And actually, it's kind of exciting. So once again, Mike Uyghur, he's gonna this weekend. It's on sale, $90.
Oh, there you go.
I think you've got me. The tinkerer, the open possibilities, and just another project in general. Sure, I'm down.
Yeah, you need a new one.
I think I do. I think this is the next project, and if the wife acceptance factor is there, I think you got me a little bit.
She shouldn't even see it, my friend. She shouldn't even see it. It should just work.
That's the plan. She shouldn't know it's even been installed, and hopefully she doesn't see the delivery
bill
show up. Yeah. Hopefully the bill's fine. It's a delivery to the door. It's the issue.
Yeah, I'll warn you. As most people know, our hub may now only be costing $89.95 at habitat.com. Shameless plug. I apologize again.
No, it's great.
But the devices add up quickly.
Yes, they do.
What about the marital therapy? Is that included as part of the subscription? No, I'm just joking.
No, but we do have quite a few female members of our community that talk about how they're using it too. So you may want to, we've got some great folks that are convincing their husbands that this is a good thing too. Yeah. So my wife is actually, she'll go in and write rules. We have automated shades, so she's going in and she's like, oh hey, I want to make sure the shades go down at this time and they go up at that time. And so she's doing a bunch of stuff along those lines too. So,
well, I think that's the key, Patrick, right? You've made the dashboards pretty easy to work with and configure. Yeah. And so when you get past that point and the technology just works, people will use it. And so if you can make that work right and maybe get on a device that works well and is large enough to mess with those, I think you got a good thing going.
That was, that's the other reason why we don't do the administration of the mobile app, is we've all done the administration of previous hubs in a mobile app, and that sucks. You could hire the best UI designers in the world, and they're still not going to be able to do it effectively. But from a desktop or from a tablet or a larger screen interface, it's a lot more comfortable and a lot easier to do. And we're just, we're a whole bunch of Gen Xers and a baby boomer or two that, yay for Gen Xers. We're so skeptical. We're so cynical.
Nobody talks about us either. It's always millennials, millennial this, millennial that.
I know, because we're the middle generation. We can't complain. We complain about millennials, but at the end of the day, I've got two.
You're totally right.
Yeah, it's our right. We knew growing up. We got blamed for everything by our parents and our grandparents, right? Totally. So now it's our turn to complain about something, and we're just kind of like, eh.
Patrick, thank you for taking the time tonight to come on. I appreciate that. If we ask you to come back whenever, what we always say is if you got something you want to talk about, would you let us know so we could have you back on to talk about
it? Absolutely, man. I love this. I'm happy to come back anytime. I love doing this. I did my first podcast in 2006. So, right when it was coming out. So we're going to be doing more of this, our Habitat Live.
Good.
Like I said, we're going to be doing that every 2 weeks, but I'm happy to get out and kind of evangelize home automation as a whole. Whether or not you use Habitat or not, I do think we are now in this renaissance where devices are cheap. It is for the average guy. You have to want to do it. So if you don't want to do it, don't bother. But if you want to figure it out, there's never been a better time. And we're seeing hundreds of millions of home voice assistants being sold out there. Then people are kind of going, well, maybe I could turn a light bulb on or off. Well, that's where the addiction starts. But if you want to do it seriously and you want to do it reliably, we think we built that, and we're going to be ahead of the curve when everybody kind of goes, why doesn't that work when the internet's down? Why doesn't, so we're already seeing, folks like Amazon and Google and stuff trying to figure out how to do this locally. We started with local and we'll finish with local. So, that's the key for us.
How long's the sale? I'll have some folks that are going to listen to this, past the weekend. Right now it's on the site at 89. How long is that going to go for?
I never know how long the sales are going to go.
So go check. If you're listening live, just buy it now. That's what you want to do. If you're listening to my voice a week or two from now, check out the site, habitat.com.
I can reasonably say, through Easter weekend, but how long after that, I wouldn't hesitate.
Okay.
We do have a history of running sales. This is the lowest price we've ever had it. We went one time below 99 just before we launched our new hub with the old product, but this is and timing is everything. Unfortunately, one of our competitors had pretty bad outage, cloud competitor. So a lot of those folks kind of got fed up and placed a lot of orders with the sales. So, and I've seen, and I really want to say thanks to all the people in the chat room for that they placed their order tonight. That's awesome. Really appreciate that. We tend to believe we built this for the people that want to use it, and you can tinker to your heart's content, but like you said, it's really, at its core, one of these set it and forget it kind of things. Like the motion sensor, I've got a Zigbee two motion sensors, one on either end of the hallway, and some Hue light bulbs. I have not touched that automation in over 18 months. It just works every single night, every single time.
Super.
And it's kind of my, canary in the coal mine, right? I know there's going to be something wrong with my hub. Like I'm going to panic. This is how conditioned I was to cloud-based stuff. You'd walk past the motion sensor, you're like, is that battery dead or is the thing going to work? Oh, the light turned on. With this, it's, oh yeah, it's on. Yep. And so that's the kind of reliability we look for. It's not like an immediate out of the box is going to work. You have to understand, I have a very large, spread out house, not large bragging wise, but just the construction, it's spread out. And so I had a lot of challenges putting proper mesh, repeaters all throughout my house to make this work. So that's a challenge. That's not unique to us. That's just home automation today. But and by the way, I'm a big fan of Ubiquity stuff too. I've got
they're getting real popular here on this show too.
Oh, yeah.
So
I've got 6 Wi-Fi access points trying to cover.
Let's not start another show. They'll start talking about that, Patrick. And we're like, don't
get me started.
Don't bring it up.
I'm happy to talk about anything other than Habitat too. So I'm a geek at art and a video game. And I'm just an average guy too. So,
well, thanks for being a friend of the show tonight and for giving us an hour and a half. I greatly appreciate it. We'll let you go. I'll close things up here. We'll probably do a little post show, but thanks for jumping in here and being a part of things. And do let me know if you got some stuff you want to talk about, some new releases or whatever that you're doing. Just let us know. We'll have you back on and
love to.
Talk about it some more.
Talk about the mobile app when it comes out.
Yeah. No pressure there. Patrick, thanks for jumping in. Hit the red hang up and we'll hope to talk to you again. Thanks for jumping in here. Yeah, you bet. Tony, I'll say this too. Thanks for jumping in here tonight and hanging around with us. Yeah, no,
I contacted Ubiquity too, just try to get them on. No response.
Well, okay.
If you could get it then, that would be pretty awesome.
We'll give them some time. Again, big thanks to Patrick Stewart there at Habitat. It's always fun. We've had some folks on here that have been small and got smaller. We've had some folks who are small and got bigger. And Tony, thanks for you're a really good example. You have always been super plugged into the community. You've been a great contributor to those things. You've been a great contributor to the podcast. We see you live when you can make it. I just appreciate you and your willingness. It was great to hear you on Home On. If you haven't ever listened to Home On, by the way, it's one of those you should be listening to if you're in the home automation space. Tony, what number show were you on with Richard?
It was 117, and unless something changes, I'm going to be on Home Tech FM here soon too.
Nice. They're making the rounds, my friend.
Yeah.
Nicely
I was shut
done.
down. It's the best thing that ever happened to me.
That's right. If it hadn't been for Lowe's Iris, right, going out,
You had the best knowledge of that, though. I tell you.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, like I said, it's one of those examples. You don't really realize what you have until you don't have it anymore. And it did get better. And talking about it was, I guess the first version was more web portal, and then they went to the more mobile version. Everybody complained about no web portal, and they were building up the web portal again, and then they shut down. But it still is pretty exciting with this new product. Talking about all the possibilities.
Yeah. No.
Lots of integrations, and this is the system for Mike. Let me tell you, it is.
I think it might be.
I think there's one coming this weekend. Let me close this up because it's going to be a monster long show, and not that it matters, but many people, we appreciate if you listen this far and you're on the recorded version. First of all, thanks to the live audience, amazing folks out there tonight, jumping in, some new folks and some folks who are out there all the time. Thanks for listening tonight. We appreciate you guys coming out and doing that. Just a couple reminders as we close it up. One, don't forget, we want to thank all our Patreon subscribers. Appreciate what you guys do every single month and in supporting the show. That helps us do the mobile app. That helps me purchase equipment when we need it here in the studio. Those kinds of things. Appreciate it. If you want to support the show and the things that we do, we're not going anywhere. We're 10 years strong this December. We're not Uyghur, we're not going anywhere, right?
No.
All right. I should really check with the boss. But we if you want to help us out, theaverageguy.tv/Patreon, $1, whatever you want to do. That's fine. You can get that in there. And it's okay. I paid my taxes already this year, so I'm kind of past that point. So if you want to subscribe out there on Patreon, love to have you do that as well. Don't forget, maybe we should start a group on Discord around this specifically, Mike. Maybe you should create a channel for that on our Discord channel. What do you think?
We could do that.
Yeah.
For now, include it in the smart home. And if that starts to take off as more of because we have a smart home channel.
Great idea.
So put it in there. And if it starts to spawn off into its own conversation, we'll definitely create a channel for it.
Sounds good. Theaverageguy.tv/Discord. Don't forget, if you get one of these, head over to their own community. I mean, it's great you discuss it in ours, but there's probably more people out there in their own communities doing that as well. So make sure you get tied into that as well. I mean, I know we're a nice community and all, but make sure you tie into their community as well. Don't forget theaverageguy.tv, both web and media hosting powered by Maple Grove Partners. If you want to get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust, it's Christian. You know that 10 plans start at $10 a month to get some of the best hosting that's out there, and really WordPress enabled and great for podcasting. You can head out to maplegrovepartners.com. We are live every Thursday, and I apparently there's going to be a conflict with their podcast now. Tony, is that right? Are they doing it at the same time? Are they doing it at 7 Central here? Are they going live?
I think it was.
Okay.
I was like, man, see where my loyalties lie.
No. So here's the deal. You have an official hall pass on the Thursdays that Habitat is doing their podcast. Maybe put them in one ear and us in the other and just kind of go back and forth. Or we record this live for you. You come back and listen to it later. Whatever you need to do. But we are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. And we'd love to have you join us on Thursdays. If you normally listen to the recorded program, just come out and listen. Try it one time. Come out and join us live. We'll see you back here next week. No crypto in the post show this week. So if you're listening to this and you're going to go right over to Patreon to listen to the crypto, no crypto. We're going to do a short post show as it is. And with that, we'll say goodnight, everybody. Tony, again, thank you, my friend, for that. For your time here tonight. I appreciate it. It was super, super great.
Meet up on Mike's back porch.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, that's the idea. This is, if we do a meetup, part of it's going to be back.
I was really disappointed though. Okay, I am really lit up. Like I can see everything right here, but according to the camera, it is not. And according to the camera, it is dark. So
Yeah, you're when you said you're a little lit up, in maybe more ways than one, right? Have you been enjoying the?
Not too many, no.
Oh, okay, all right, good.
But yeah,
Good.
man, did I sound like it though? Am I?
Uh,
I'm a little cold, so
I thought you're outside, you're out on the patio.
yeah. I mean, I
enjoying-
definitely have one right here, but and I had two, but two beers over the course of the night. That's a pretty low night on the podcast.
I would have got a cigar out if I were you. That's
You know,
what
I was thinking about it, so
Yeah, no, we had that.
but
Tony,
no, I'm not
thank you.
lit.
No, you're
Like
fine. It's just
light
funny
was.
the way you said that. You're like,
Yeah, right.
I
Pretty
thought
lit.
I was lit up.
Pretty lit. Yeah.
No, right on. Tony, you're becoming quite famous in the community. You're having your maybe more than 15 minutes. You might be having your 3 months of fame.
That's probably about 15 minutes. And I said earlier, man, you need to get Gavin on. He's way smarter about this, and definitely
maybe the next time we have them on, we'll get him to join us. Gavin, if you're open for that, let me know. And he sounds like he's written some actions on this thing. What do you call them on the dashboard? What do you call it when you write your own driver for it? Is there a name for that?
I forgot what they call it actually. And like I say, the interface is very routerish, but it's not as intimidating as the videos made it seem, honestly.
Okay, good. He says he's down. Super. He says he has you fooled.
No, he was great. What he did on the Home Tech, he did smart things, and later on, I thought he did the Habitat. They were both excellent.
Gavin, I think we had him on Home Service Show one time too. I think. Gavin, were you ever on Home Service Show? I think maybe. Okay. Well, let's get some water under the bridge and let this thing do its thing. We got to get Uyghur maybe to have one, and then maybe we'll circle back around. You know how we do this. We circle back around with them, and if they've got something new or something they want to announce or something they want to do, we'll says no. Huh? Okay, I must be thinking of somebody else. All right. Well, we'll get you back on. I will remember that, and as we do this next go around, maybe we'll do it. What do they call it? Panel? No, that's not the right word. How do you do it when you have is it called a panel discussion? Is that what we call it? Maybe we'll
roundtable. Yeah,
roundtable panel discussion style.
Yeah.
Well, one of the good things is the next time we do this and we have them on, we don't have to do all the introduction stuff. We can just get right down to business. So that's always the nice thing about doing it a second go around. You know,
I've only had a short time, even pretty much set up in a few rules and a few dashboards. Now, even me, that's one of the downsides to not being able to remotely administrate it. I can only mess with it when I'm home.
Well, maybe that's good. Maybe because there was times I was turning lights off in the house and Sarah was like, "Hey, what?" Like I was outside, and I was flickering the lights on and off as I was messing with it, and she's like, "Hey, what are you doing? Like the lights keep going on and off." Oh, I'm sorry, I'm messing around with automation. So maybe good that you can only do it locally. So all right, well, I think I got a headache in the middle of all this. Like it just. In the last 45 minutes, it just kind of came on. I think, Mike, I smoked cigars Tuesday.
That
was good.
That cigar hangover.
We had a lot of bourbon and cigars. I probably shouldn't have done it, but it was super great in the middle of the week. So I got to get you. You and I need to meet down in Havana.
Yeah, I've got tomorrow Good Friday. I got the day off, so this is my weekend. I'm done.
Put a suit on tomorrow and go to Lincoln.
Oh, dang. No, I get to hang out with my boys tomorrow. We're going to come right back out here, play outside all day. It's going to be great. Hannah has to work, but I don't. So hospital does not, the hospitals, as Tony knows, they don't rest. They don't turn off.
No, they don't observe Good Friday. Tony doesn't.
They don't observe any holidays.
They don't observe Good Friday or Easter for that matter. Well, Tony, good that you didn't have to work over the Easter weekend.
Yeah, it just happened to work that way.
It doesn't always, though.
No,
doesn't always, though.
No, not at all.
Thanks for doing what you're doing there. It's a big. Those are tough jobs, and they're not easy, and they're a lot of stress, and you put a lot of hours in, and you get some time off. But I appreciate the work that you do. Thanks for staying up. I know it's a little late. Probably. Well, you got tomorrow off. You're good. You're good to go, right? The kids make it off the bed.
Oh yeah.
Good.
They're fine. Like I say, my next 7 days off, go see grandma. Actually work a part-time job a day too.
Of course you do. Of course you do. Of course you do. Well, you guys hang tight for 1 second. If you're listening live, thanks for coming out tonight. Lots of good accolades in the chat room from people. They really enjoyed the show tonight. So, guys, good work. And if you're listening live, thanks for coming out. We'll see you next week. Hold on. I wonder what we're doing next week. Weeker, are you here next week?
It's you and me, I think, next week. So
Let's just take
together.
a peek. Yeah, I should probably do this earlier in the show, but let's just take a quick. Oh, let's see. So this is 398. So yeah, you and me at 399. Excuse me, a little Guinness coming back. So you and me for 399, and then 400 is Christian. I think I got Zadler. You and me. So that could be a fun 400 reunion show.
Oh, that's right.
So I think we got Johnny Z, and then 401, we have Micah Librant back, and Micah has been messing around with just about every set of earbuds she's been trying to find the perfect wireless earbuds, and so we're going to spend a bunch of time talking about sound and audio and a whole bunch of those kinds of things. So stay around. You're going to want to join us live. We'll see you guys next week.